The moment that check hit the counter, I knew my day was about to go sideways. Not slid across politely, not handed back with questions. Slammed. The man behind the desk didn't even bother lowering his voice. He looked at me like I'd tracked mud into his living room and said, "We don't process checks like this for people like you. People like you." Yeah, that was his opening line. And right there, standing in a downtown bank lobby that smelled like marble and money, I realized this wasn't about paperwork. It never was. I was 23, fresh out of college, first real job, first real paycheck. I'd rehearsed this moment in my head a dozen times. Walk in, open an account, deposit the check. Walk out feeling like I'd finally crossed some invisible line into adulthood. You know what I mean? That quiet little win you don't post online but feel in your chest. The check was legit. Signing bonus plus first month's pay from a tech consulting firm I'd busted my ass to get into. Nothing flashy about me, just clean jeans, a button-down, and nerves I was trying to hide. The building itself felt like it was judging me before anyone else did. Polished floors, muted voices, suits everywhere. The security guard at the door watched me a second longer than everyone else's eyes following me like I might bolt. I noticed it, but I told myself not to overthink it. I smiled at the teller, made a joke about it being my first grown-up deposit. She smiled back, glanced at the amount, and her face changed just a little. Not hostile, just cautious. She excused herself, and that's when he appeared. Let's call him Mr. Carlyle. Mid-50s, silver-hair, tailored suit, the kind of confidence that comes from never being questioned. He took the check from her hand like it offended him. Didn't ask my name, didn't ask how he could help. He just looked at me then, at the check, then back at me and said, "Step into my office." Not a request, a command. Inside, the tone shifted fast. He held the check up to the light like it might dissolve. Asked how I got it. Asked where I worked. Asked how someone my age could make that kind of money. I explained calmly. Degree. Internship. Offer letter. He nodded without listening. When I handed him my paperwork, he barely glanced at it before pushing it aside. Said documents like these were easy to fake. Said he'd seen scams way more convincing than this. I asked politely if he could call the company to verify. He said he already had. Dialed a number, waited 2 seconds, hung up, shrugged. No answer. That's suspicious. I could feel the frustration building, but I kept my voice even. I asked for my documents back and told him I could come back another time. That's when his hand came down hard on the desk right over my fingers. Not crushing, but deliberate. A reminder. "Listen," he said, leaning forward, voice low. "Someone like you doesn't just walk in here with a check like this." He smiled, like he was being helpful, like he was saving me from myself. Something in me snapped quietly. I told him that sounded like an assumption. I told him it felt like he'd already decided who I was before I opened my mouth. His face tightened. He told me he'd been in banking for over 20 years and knew fraud when he saw it, that this was about protecting the institution. Funny how the institution always needs protection from the same people. He started implying things. Identity theft, drug money, running errands for someone else. He laughed while he said it like it was all a big misunderstanding I could clear up if I just confessed to something. When I asked to speak to another manager, he said, "I am the manager." When I pulled out my phone, he snatched it away and said recording wasn't allowed. 2 security guards appeared at the door like they'd been waiting for a cue. That's when I texted my mom. Just 1 sentence. "Something's wrong at the bank. Manager says my check is fake." I didn't add details. I didn't need to. Mr. Carlyle called the police. I heard him do it. Told them I was uncooperative, potentially dangerous. He said it so smoothly you'd think he believed it. While we waited, he had the guards take my backpack, my wallet, my phone. Emptied my things onto his desk like evidence in a bad TV show. Laptop, textbooks, prescription meds. He mocked the finance books, asked if they were light reading. Took photos of my ID and said it was standard procedure. It wasn't. But at that point, reality didn't matter. Power did. Then he walked me out into the lobby and told me to stand by the security desk where everyone could see me. A public display. People stared. Some curious, some uncomfortable, some already convinced I'd done something wrong. I stood straight anyway. I refused to shrink. I noticed a security camera adjust, slightly focusing in. I remembered something my mom always said: document everything. Document. What Mr. Carlyle didn't know was that my watch was recording audio. And what he really didn't know was who was pulling up outside. The doors opened and the entire room went quiet. You could feel it. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. My mother walked in like she belonged there because she did. Tailored suit, calm expression, that kind of presence that doesn't need to announce itself. Employees straightened. The guards shifted. One of the officers who'd just arrived recognized her immediately. She introduced herself. New name, same authority. CEO of the company that issued the check. Board member at a financial oversight group. She said calmly that the check was legitimate, that the young man being treated like a criminal was one of their newest hires. She didn't say she was my mother yet. She let the silence work. Mr. Carlyle tried to talk about protocol, about red flags, about how he was just doing his job. She asked him simple questions that cut deep. Is it protocol to call the police before verifying employment? Is it protocol to confiscate personal property? Is it protocol to make assumptions based on appearance? Each question landed like a punch he couldn't dodge. The assistant manager finally spoke up, said she'd already checked the system. Everything matched. The check was valid. Mr. Carlyle looked like the floor had shifted under him. That's when my mother placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "I'm his mom." You could hear phones coming out. The regional director showed up minutes later, summoned by a call he couldn't ignore. My mother didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She explained that this wasn't just about her son. It was about every customer who didn't have someone powerful walking through the door to stop the humiliation. She asked how many people had been treated this way, how many accounts lost, how much trust destroyed. Mr. Carlyle was suspended that day, fired soon after. But here's the part people don't always expect. That wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Meetings, investigations, policy changes, data. A lot of uncomfortable conversations. I sat in rooms I was never supposed to be in, not as a symbol, but as someone whose experience mattered. We showed them the numbers. How bias costs money. How inclusion isn't charity, it's good business. Months later, I walked back into that same branch. Same building, different energy. The guard greeted me by name. No hovering, no suspicion. New signage, clear policies. A young couple opened their first account while I watched, treated with patience and respect. It shouldn't have felt revolutionary, but it did. Sometimes I think back to the sound of that check hitting the counter. Mr. Carlyle thought he was stopping a problem. What he actually did was expose one. And not everyone gets an ending like this. Most people walk out angry, embarrassed, unheard. No cameras, no witnesses, no justice. So I'm telling you this because it's bigger than me. Bigger than one bank, one manager, one check. If you've seen something like this, say something. If you've lived it, share it. Argue with me in the comments if you want. Talk about what's right, what's fair, what still needs to change. Because silence is what lets this keep happening. And the moment we stop staying quiet, that's when things actually start to move.